everyone, and welcome to Playwright, a podcast about creating and sharing new ways to play. My name is Ryan Hamann, also known as H.
And I'm Ryan Quintal, also known as Q.
You know, right now I'm looking at a couple of very, very sexy Xbox One controllers. Like, for everything else you can say about the console, like, they do their accessories so well. It makes me want more controllers, even though I know I will never have anyone else to play with.
I know, it's too bad they're more expensive than Amiibo, because I would find myself buying a lot of them. But are you referring specifically to this new, like sort of muted gold to translucent black?
Yeah.
What a controller. Holy cow.
And they even have their studio where you can design your own controllers with your own different color schemes and everything. And it's like, that's the coolest thing if there was a practical use for me owning more than two controllers.
Yeah, it's true. I even fell for, they had a Sea of Thieves controller that they put out.
Yeah.
And, you know, we can talk about how successful that game was, but that Sea of Thieves controller had a gold tooth that was like just the right trigger was gold.
Mm-hmm.
And it has like barnacles laser etched into it, and it's partially glow in the dark. It's just a fantastic controller. And the Xbox One controller is my favorite video game controller.
It is very good, yeah.
I wish I could use it on my Switch and my PlayStation 4. I'm sure there's peripherals to make that happen.
Yeah, the 8-bit, though, has a receiver that you can plug into a Switch and receive just about any controller's signals. Although, I will caution you against using PS4 controllers, because from what I've heard from my friends from the video gaming space, even if you've got a PlayStation 4 controller plugged into something else, it will also control the PlayStation 4 that it was last attached to.
I've experienced
perhaps
this.
make purchases unbeknownst to you.
Yeah, I want to pre-order Ghost of Tsushima about 50 times anyway, so I think I'll be okay on that front.
All right. Well, let us get to the video game pitches today. Q, what do you have for us?
So for you today, I'm bringing you something a little strange and different. This is inspired by two games, one old, one contemporary. The old one is Frogger, and the contemporary one is Echo Arena in VR.
I was hoping you would say Echo the Dolphin.
That would be wonderful. So it's kind of a VR 3D space Frogger, where you are in potentially a series of concentric orbital rings around a planet or space station. And there's all sorts of debris and obstacles that you have to kind of launch over and make sure that you're not being hit and thrown off course. And maybe as you approach some of these medium-sized asteroids, you can use a hand mining laser or something to extract resources and give yourself boosts or power-ups to keep propelling you forward. And the goal is just to get as deep into outer space as you can.
Very cool. Well, let's start the clock there. So let's talk about the mode of propulsion. You referenced Echo Arena. Lone Echo, I think, was the standalone single-player version of that game engine. I have only played Arena, although I own Lone Echo now. I've just not had the time to sit down and play it yet. Oh, stand up and play it yet, rather. But it's really cool, kind of throwing yourself around in this zero-gravity space. You grab onto objects around you, and you push off to propel yourself forward in VR with the perfect one-to-one motion tracking with your hands. Yeah, that's super cool. There are other games where you can use like rocket boosters, almost like in Asteroids, where you have to kind of correct in the opposite direction if you want to stop. There's lots of options that are available to us. Like, what do you think would be the most suitable locomotion option for this game?
I think I've made reference to it on previous episodes of our show, but I've always been compelled by this J.J. Abrams Star Trek sort of spacesuit propulsion system, where you maybe have one booster in each hand, a la an Iron Man. Taking that and kind of putting it into space, so you have a little bit of lateral control, but it's mostly for propelling you forward. The idea of that being something that is very easily depleted, and not only do you have to kind of circumvent things and jump between them like you would in Frogger, but you have to make sure the sort of lily pads that you're landing on, or the clear street that you're landing on, is something that you can potentially mine for these resources.
That's cool. I like this idea of the boosters in each hand, and especially if this is VR, then you have that one-to-one hand tracking to be able to like balance those to propel yourself in any direction. Like, I feel like that's something I haven't done yet in VR, and it's kind of surprising now that I think back to it. Like, why don't I have this Iron Man fantasy game?
Yeah, we often see, I played a while. Do you remember that EVE Online sort of space shooter? I forget the name of it. That's in VR for PlayStation VR.
Yeah.
That was really cool and really created a sense of moving through space inside of a ship. So maybe that helps with like motion sickness because you have static things around you like a console. But the idea of literally being physically within space and even being compelled to maybe elongate your body or even put your arms by your side or something as you're in the VR space and really stiffen yourself to get the best angle of your approach.
I almost see this working out like a Star Wars Episode 1 racer, where you have control over how much each hand is emitting.
Yeah.
How much each hand is boosting. I know we're kind of getting hung up on what ultimately isn't like the core premise of the game, but I'm just so interested in this aspect of it.
No, I think you're right. I love the idea to pull in more sort of Episode 1 racer stuff. Man, I can't believe we're talking about Episode 1 racer. That makes me happy. Things could maybe go wrong with your spacesuit, and you have to sort of momentarily take one hand offline and sort of look at the controls on your wrist to maybe type something into the computer and run a quick emergency repair. All the while, if you were boosting, because you were only boosting with one arm, you get spun off into a direction. So you kind of have that true spiraling through space experience. I know that also would probably be nauseating, but it would be interesting to try and do a safer, maybe more stable version of that.
So let's get back to the actual frogging.
Yes.
Well, one who frogs is a frogger. Something about Frogger that makes it work, I think, is, it's set in this 2D space where each kind of block of the environment is either occupied by a hazard or it isn't. Like, it's a very binary thing. Whereas in 3D, there's a lot more room to dodge around objects or, even to find yourself in the orbit of something in 3D. It feels like if everything is orbiting on a two-dimensional plane, it would be really easy to find yourself in a space where in any direct threat of getting hit with anything. And so how do we keep that immediate? And, we can always do the negative space thing where you have a wall coming at you and you have to fit into a little hole of it. But I feel like that kind of goes against the core premise here.
Well, I think that there could be some of that in the later, like the further out you get, go very 2001 A Space Odyssey and have like floating monoliths, like giant sheets of stuff that are very precise and require very specific threading as you're moving through them. But I think if you reasonably control the plane, maybe you can only go so far up and so far down, and that could help potentially with motion sickness too. You could pull off something where you have like a belt of asteroids and then occasionally a satellite that's like moving at a different speed, and you're trying to go through these things. And for me, like the moments of Frogger that are great, and actually of Crossy Road, it's sort of contemporary counterpart, that are great, are when you kind of land on those side strips or those islands in the middle of the road where you can pause for a moment. I think that there could be a lot of times when you're getting through a few rings that you might want to just kick your hands in front of you and blast them Iron Man style to bring yourself to a stop so that you have a moment's rest before you kind of propel yourself through the next potential obstacles.
One of the things that I like seeing in sci-fi movies, sometimes in action movies, you see this in like Mission Impossible 2, I think, had a sequence where Tom Cruise was like avoiding an underwater spinning turbine or something like that. Like, I like when people
Mission
have
Impossible 5 Rogue Nation, of course.
Did that have...
Yes.
Okay. One of the Mission Impossibles. They all kind of blur together.
Yeah.
These spinning turbines, these where you have to get through something tight.
Yeah.
But I find in video games those aren't that fun. I just keep going back to Conker's Bad Fur Day and just how unfun it was to swim through these spinning blades. And, you know, it's just because there's always the delay between when you hit the button and when the character starts picking up speed to swim. So you have to kind of calculate that. And how do we make this interesting? And maybe setting it in first person in VR is the step that's missing because you get a better sense of the 3D space and awareness of the space around you.
Yeah, you'd certainly have a different perspective on it. I can definitely attest to it's not fun to play any sort of especially third person 3D swimming sequence. Just camera controls become very bad in those moments because they're trying to represent to you like the entirety of a puzzle, but at the same time, like your location in a space. Hopefully the VR stuff does get around some of that, but maybe you're onto something that this, to explain the narrow corridors or the endlessly spinning thing, maybe this needs to be an underwater game.
You know, or you could be trying to get towards the center of a space station with all the rings of space stationery spinning around it.
Yes.
Moving parts.
Yeah, so you could maybe you start every run like launching out of an airlock on whatever your spaceship is. You know, you can't actually park too close because you might get caught up in the orbit or something. You launch out from your spaceship, you're coming in, maybe you're coming in too hot at first and you're like flying through a couple things. If you run out of the ability to blast your way with your thrusters, that's when I think you need to be able to either grab onto asteroids or grab onto satellites of sorts. There should be, you know, programmatically one thing or so per row at least that you can grab onto and pull yourself forward or get yourself in a position where you're able to refuel. There has to be those slower moving things, not only to manually propel you, but to restock. And maybe, right, you get to a floating piece of debris and it's got a piece of equipment on it, a level 2 thruster or a blaster, so with 3 shots, so you can actually destroy a couple asteroids in front of you as you continue to approach to the center of the space station. And then, of course, right, once you get to the space station, even more intricate, like spinny whirly things to get to the core of it or whatever.
Before we run out of time, I should reference a game that I used to see come up fairly often, but it's been a very long time since I've heard anyone talking about it, called Awe for the Awesome. It's about like 20 A's in a row, and then For the Awesome appended to the end of that. Do you know that one?
No, I don't. Tell me about it.
Okay, this used to be popular in Steam sales on like old Steam, you know, back before it became flooded with everything. So like everyone kind of knew all of the games on Steam, which seems incomprehensible now. But you had that at least passing familiarity with them. But anyways, this is a first-person skydiving game, an indie game, where you are basically jumping down what looks like the sides of buildings that kind of extend infinitely or almost infinitely throughout this 3D space. They're just kind of floating in space. They've got parts that jut out of them, and you control your character in first person as you are basically falling, and you're just trying to avoid hitting anything. You're trying to go as close as you can to obstacles and skitch along the sides of buildings and stuff like that. And so, you know, playing as dangerously as possible was kind of the thrill there. But I just thought it was relevant. So yeah, it's a good game. Awe for the Awesome again. Search for the Awesome, because I am not going to count how many A's there are. There are too many. Anyways, that's all the time we have there. We have to come up with a name for this game. What are you going to call it?
What if we did, like, instead of Dead Orbit, Thread Orbit?
Thread Orbit? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure what Dead Orbit means in any context, but
I believe it's either another video game or Dead Orbit's a movie or something. I think Dead Orbit's a thing.
Okay, cool. We
Listeners,
can go with that then.
Leave a comment on the episode if Dead Orbit is indeed a thing.
Now, my turn. This is a game that is very similar to one that I've pitched in the past and might actually be the exact same thing. I'm pretty sure it's different, but I am not 100% confident on that. So if it is the same thing, let's see if we could take it in a different direction. This is what I know that I have pitched before is like a competitive object, like a hidden object game using a cell phone camera. And so what I'm going to spin it with this time is that you are given an object to hide in a picture, or maybe you have to take like a short video or something of your environment. You're given actually a choice of objects to hide, depending on how hard you want to make it for yourself. And basically, you just have to line up a picture that makes it very difficult to see the object, like the clip art object that you're given to hide. So whether that is putting it in a naturalistic space in which it doesn't stand out, or maybe it's matching background colors to make it like literally disappear into the picture. And then basically your opponent gets the picture on his or her own cell phone and just has to find whatever object is supposed to be hidden. They don't know what they're looking for, and so it's just anything that they think stands out that doesn't belong. So, it's kind of this mental manipulation game. So I'm going to start the clock there.
I think I'll start off by saying I think this is different from another game you pitched.
Okay, I think so too.
Yeah, the original pitch was like get into a pose or like take a picture of a thing.
Okay, yeah, right.
Do you think that there's room for each person needs a prompt, like find, like you're supposed to hide a vase and the other person maybe doesn't know what the prompt was or something like that? Maybe that's too specific. I'm just trying to think of like...
Well, the thing is that the way that I envision this, at least, is that you are given like stickers that you need to hide. And so they are like flat objects, and maybe they are... like photos of real life things, like a photo of a vase, and you have to find a way to make it not stand out. You have to make sure it fits in with the environment, that the lighting is somewhat right, because there's a lot that can make, an obviously photoshopped in prop stand out. And maybe it could be something cartoony that you have to find some way to hide in the picture.
So you're getting kind of cutouts of like perfectly photoshopped trimmed things, maybe even badly photoshopped trimmed.
Yeah, depending on the difficulty level.
Right. And like maybe that thing is something as mundane as a clock that's not actually on your wall.
Mm-hmm.
Which you could kind of is fun because you can hide in plain sight.
Right.
All the way to you get like, I don't know, like a butterfly and you hide it in the pattern of a dress or something.
Yeah. Now we're getting it.
All right. Now I think I understand what the game is. I think that this is really cool. And I love the idea of like having different... Now I'm into monetization strategy. We're making this, everybody. TM. I love the idea of having like packs that you download of like the sci-fi pack and having like UFOs or something as in the theme, and the person on the other end maybe just has to like circle the part of the photo that you send them manually and be like, oh, I think it's there. Maybe depending on how far away they are, they get like a certain score, like that sort of map game that you had showed me a while back.
I think that drawing a circle gets, I guess the tighter the circle you draw, the more points you could stand to win. So if you just circle the whole screen, then obviously, I think that there's something about like tapping on it, like with your finger that makes sense. But at the same time, it's really easy to like accidentally tap something with your thumb, or, it's not a perfect system either. So maybe circling it is the best way to do it.
Yeah. And I like the idea, if it is tied to a sticker, maybe like if it's a preset sticker, there can be some level of hint or something that the person who is doing the circling or tapping can get from the game of like, oh, this is a metal thing. Wow, okay. Now I'm like scouring the photo looking for stuff like that. I even love the idea of maybe being able to eventually include like people or like characters that are not actually in the photo. That's always some of my favorite stuff.
Can just hide them among my amiibo shelf.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my God, it's Mario and Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. Very strange. Okay, so I put in one of these in a photo. I think that there should be, I don't know if there's some way to directly control the quality of the photo. Maybe the app itself has to take the picture, because you don't want to be able to just upload something that's either incredibly high detailed and that the other person is going to find it. Like, it's about hiding things in mundane situations, right?
Well, I mean, the person has to take a photo with their camera based on where they are, they might have an advantage or a disadvantage based on whatever they're trying to hide. And so it's just kind of about being clever with what you have around you.
Got it.
So you're not really uploading anything.
I like the idea of actually bringing in, maybe this is cheating, but some really baseline like photo controls, either on your photo or on your sticker, where you can kind of a little bit brighten or darken the sticker so that you get a little bit of a better blend. So somebody who's like really good at compositing can put together something that's pretty hard to find.
That makes sense. I like that. Maybe all of this is kind of like an adjustable difficulty level, like things that the more assists that you need, the less payoff you get or something like that.
Right. If you're able to, or if you can like pinch and zoom and resize the sticker, the larger you make the sticker, the more points it's worth to you to stump someone.
Yeah, that's a good one. I understand this is like, I can feel the people finding loopholes in this rule set already.
Yeah.
Of making it infinitesimally small. Obviously, there have to be some bottom limit.
Well, I think what you could set, like programmatically, you could set upper size limits and lower size limits. So that way, like, okay, it's at maximum bigness versus like you can't turn it into an and size thing because you're not really playing the game at that point.
You could also have like certain words, like text pieces that you have to hide in the environment. And so whether that's like positioning it on a street sign or positioning it like on the side of a DVD case or something on a shelf, and just hope that people don't discover that that's the one that is the decoy.
That's fun. So maybe there's even like it's kind of a build your own magic, or not magic eye, but like iSpy, where you're able to put up, a dozen things in there and someone's like, whoa, like this person managed to hide the thing on the chalkboard wasn't there, the thing on the, the thing in the restaurant, the thing that was on that guy's t-shirt. None of that was real.
Yeah. I used to love the iSpy books growing up, and I would love any video game pitch that gets close to that kind of magic of creating your own iSpy. So listeners, if you're out there, that is your challenge for this week.
Listeners, we will pay $100 for the iSpy phone app. No, we won't.
Well,
we will pay 100 cents, maybe.
I mean, if it's good enough, sure.
Yeah. Obviously, it makes sense to have this be almost a Words with Friends where you can like put together things and just see all of your friends' iSpys that they're putting up. I love that. I'm calling them iSpys already. I'm trying to think.
You could ask for help on social media as well. You can post this to your feed and see if people can guess, what part of the puzzle doesn't belong, or if they recognize one of the clip art pieces.
Whoa, wait a second. So this is a great way both to capture some social promotion and also, I think, make it a part of the game, where what if in a round or something you get the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire equivalent of like Lifeline phone a friend things, right? So like, okay, you can share this, to social media, but it'll only be good for 1 hour and then the URL expires or something. And so if you have a big following, you'll probably be able to get it. But like, a lot of people might only have, 0 to 100 followers, and that's going to be trickier where maybe there's another lifeline that's like, we will brighten the photo itself by 2% or something, or 5%. And sometimes that can be enough to give away a shoddy compositing job.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about time that popular people started receiving some benefits.
Yeah. For too long, we've had our boots on the neck of them.
It's keeping them down, weighing them down with social obligations.
Yeah, what other is there any other fun lifelines that you could think about that I think would be like fun? Maybe when you start a match of these with a friend, like each of you get a sum total of 3.
Yeah, maybe there is some sort of like a riddle clue. Something that doesn't necessarily tell you are looking for a soda fountain, but something that gives you, at least some indication of an idea of what you should be looking for.
Potentially a way to reveal a piece of metadata or something like, hey, here's where this photo was taken. And you're like, oh, this was taken in Boston. There probably wasn't a like a
Gazelle.
Yeah, right, exactly. Something in there.
Although I feel like that one, if you were playing with your friends, it would be pretty, I don't know how helpful that would be,
it'd be pretty
because it's
local,
this
right?
was taken at his workplace, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess that's more helpful if you're looking at a stranger's one.
Right.
I like the idea of taking the hardest to solve ones, or the ones that have stumped the most friends, and put those up on like a leaderboard somewhere where like you can also see if you can spot the stuff in the fake photos. And then once you set in your answers and hit, I think this is it, then you could see like a heat map of everything else people tapped.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, obviously there's an inherent risk to creating any app that lets the community share photos widely with potentially children, but otherwise I think it's a cool idea.
We'll have to get Jin Yang and his hot dog, not hot dog technology on this one.
All right, well, that's all the time we have there. With that said, I have to come up with a name. I feel like scavenger hunt has some sort of a pun potential. Like aperture hunt, maybe?
Aperture hunt? Aperture hunt's pretty good.
It's not bad. It's not great.
Yeah, it definitely says photo quite a bit. Sticker hunt, or something like that too. But I was gonna go all the way on the other side of it and do the cheesy circa late 2000s lowercase I spy.
That is better. I like that. We could use iSpy for that. Anyways, let's get to our community pitch for the day. This one comes from Neil Piper, the submitter of our very first pitch, if I remember correctly.
Neil's back, baby!
He's back with a vengeance. Let's see how this one goes. Growing up, my family played a lot of Sierra's King's Quest, the classic adventure game where the puzzles were obtuse and as a result you died a lot. The developers at Sierra at one point thought, you die a lot in our games, what if we made it so dying was fun or funny? They turned this idea into their Space Quest series of sci-fi parody point-and-click adventure games, which my family also played when I was a kid. They were also very difficult, but we got a laugh out of most of the many times that we died because the situation was ridiculous or the game's commentary was sarcastic. Today, there were a lot of great games where you die a lot, but relatively few, where I am aware, where it is intentionally fun or funny. So here's my pitch. What game would you make if you took a similar approach with a modern game design, like Dark Souls, for example, and changed dying in the game from a potentially frustrating moment into a humorous one? And we'll start the clock.
I think that humor could be just the thing to help a Dark Souls be a little bit more approachable for people. How to implement it. One thing that comes to mind is leveraging the sort of Soulsian-based messages that you can kind of leave for yourself and other players. I think being able to serve those up at time of death could end up being a very funny thing.
Yeah, I think when it comes to...
That was a very reluctant, yeah, I felt it in your voice.
No, it's like I'm having a hard time arriving at the right conclusion in my head. The thing that makes death in those Sierra games fun is that it leverages the game's core mechanics of storytelling and basically tells you a funny story. And so, that's elegant. It fits the game that it was introduced into really well. But when I think of deaths in action games, even if I were to make them funny, it feels like it's just garnish on the same reluctant, you got to start again cycle, which maybe you could argue that's the same thing that it was in King's Quest. But in that case, like you were seeing new content, new jokes and new story bits. And so, that is an aspect of what you come to the game for. So, that is a small victory in a way. I think of like Crash Bandicoot does a really good job of incorporating humor into its deaths, just because it has so many really great death animations of Crash in the various ways he dies. Can float up to heaven like an angel. He can fall into a pit and have his shoes fly back up, or he can be flattened like a pancake and waddle around on the ground, or get electrocuted and you see his skeleton. Just all these things that you can do to Crash to have him die in so many funny ways. But ultimately, it is still frustrating because you are still just dying and respawning, even though there is that little laugh in between?
So I was watching, I think this could be inspiration for me. I was watching earlier 7 minutes, I think was the title, 7 minutes of Doom Eternal gameplay. I don't know if you've seen any of the gameplay from the new Doom, or if you played the 2016 Doom. Way you stomp out some of these demons, and just Twist is so over the top that it itself is a comic book version of itself. And so there was a couple of these style deaths in the new Doom where you're shoving a blade through a guy, and it was just so over the top that it actually strangely elicited like this guttural laugh for me, because I just couldn't believe it was being done. So I think this is connected with Crash in the animation itself has to be very funny to die. But now I'm going to bring in this twist, which is, have you seen either Deadpool movie?
I've seen the second one.
Okay, so you know where this is going. When Deadpool gets killed or dismembered in some way, he has to grow back his body parts from baby to adult. And I love the idea of maybe potentially one of these hyper realistic gory games where you can have an arm severed, or you can have a leg cut off, or both your legs cut off. And if you do, you have to sort of, on your respawn for a little bit, waddle around on baby legs, or the hand that comes up with your first person shooter gun is just a tiny little stupid baby hand. And maybe there are like gameplay ramifications of this, of, when you've got baby legs, you're kind of waddling around on the ground, or it takes an extra long time to shoot a gun, or like you fumble with a reload because you don't have your nerves developed yet, or whatever. But ultimately, I think it would be funny to like physically alter the character, regress them in some way as you die.
Yeah, that's cool. I think there would be, for a death to be repeatedly funny, it has to be somewhat procedural. There's a game called, I'm not going to remember now. It's one of those off-road racing games. It's like a two words combined into one, like Outrun or something like that, but I don't think that's it. Where you're racing, and anytime you crash, basically your little human ragdoll goes flying out of the windshield and flops around on the ground. And like, that's funny because it's different every time. And the same thing with like Burnout Revenge or Burnout Paradise. It's funny to watch the cars wrap around each other. And, I can imagine a procedural physics type of animation could be quite funny to see. Like if there were deaths in an Octodad game or something like that. But to wrap that into this idea of regrowing limbs, I think that fits.
Especially if maybe even if it's not regrowing limbs and you like have to come back to life as a baby and like get yourself back up to adult size, whether over time or like eating a power up or something. I love the idea of the enemies or the NPCs in the world reacting to you as if you're a baby or a child, and like the things that they're screaming as you're on your rampage are, appropriate or reactionary to, I'm getting my butt kicked by this, little kid, even though they don't know it's you, or potentially a giant beastie finding you adorable as a child and kind of picking you up to cuddle you or coddle you. That could be funny, and you would be interested, you'd want to die around different types of enemies in the game to just see how they would react to you at different phases of your development.
Okay. So what does death look like? What is the setback? Because if you were to just keep a battle going, you just regress in age, then you could essentially just brute force anything with your eyes closed, because the boss just keeps attacking and you can't ever fully die. And so, it'd be nice to have some sort of a mechanic where you can lose a scenario.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily, I would see it as like health packs regain health when you're fully grown, but they like grow / mature you when you're a baby. So you do get to an adult and then you do die. And then like as you respawn, you kind of like emerge from, I don't know where you would
maybe you
come
have to
from.
balance that. And maybe if you're young, you get health packs and you grow up. But if you are at an optimal age and you keep getting health packs, then you like grow into an old person.
Oh,
and
yeah,
that
yeah,
starts
yeah.
to like slow you down.
That's fun too, because then now you can have like people remarking on your advanced age as well. Like I like the idea of a lot of the monsters in the game almost having the disposition, and I'm mapping sort of a Doom-esque model onto this. Feel free to like totally change it, but I love the idea of these monsters and demons having shitty teen sort of attitudes towards you. So they're disrespectful to you as a child. They're kind of jerks to you when you're around that age, and then finally, when you're old, they're even meaner. Like there's no point where they're redeemable.
Here we go. So this is like a Dark Souls-like world. When you get health packs, you age up, and when you get hit, you age down until you are just kind of helpless and reeling on the ground.
Okay, yeah.
And eventually you would have to like roll yourself to safety, or maybe there would be like a natural aging over time or something like that. And the same thing happens to enemies. And so you come up against these great swordsmen, and as you're fighting them, they are getting younger and the armor starts not fitting so well and they turn into babies. And so eventually you're just leaving like a trail of babies in your wake.
The goal is to babify the entire universe.
Yeah, exactly, like Mortal Kombat.
I was going to say this is very Mortal Kombat.
I like that. That could make death quite funny. I don't really know what happens when you are a full baby. Maybe once you're a baby, then you can go back to like a zygote form, and it's like Spore, where you have to like, I don't know, roll or swim around on the cell level.
The real battles in the petri
where does
dish.
life begin, really?
Yeah. I mean, in the Mortal Kombat model, I think that we could just go even crazier, where like, you take mythological creatures that are centaurs, and you can like turn them into baby ponies, like total animality on the whole thing.
I like that a lot. Well, that's all the time we have there. Thank you, Neil Piper, for sending that one in. And if you, the listener, would like to send one in, you can at playwrightcast@gmail.com, or go to our website, playwrightcast.com/pitch, or tweet us at playwrightcast. But before we can close the book on that, we have to come up with a name. What are we going to call this this aging quest of babifying the land?
Oh, man. I love the idea of doing like Button's quest in reference to Benjamin Button. Like, that's kind of fun.
It feels like a bit of a stretch.
I like the idea of putting quest in it, because I know Neil was originally talking about space in King's Quest.
Like Babe Quest.
Babe
I feel like
Quest
that has a different spin as well.
That's probably not great. Maybe, is it weird to do like Birthday Quest or something like super silly?
Birthday Quest.
You're trying to get back to your birthday, like reborn.
There is that game called Happy Birthdays. Do you know that one?
No, tell me about it.
It's like some sort of I don't even know what it is, but I keep looking up screenshots of it. But it's like a Minecraft type game with dinosaurs in it. It's just a super weird name for a game like that.
This sounds so generic, but what if you did like Quest Age, or bring age
Quest
into it, and Age Quest, Life Quest. What do you call like the entirety of somebody's life?
A waste.
Lifespan,
maybe.
Ooh, Lifespan is pretty good. Let's do that.
Its sequel, Deathspan, can be.
Lifespan to Deathspan.
And of course, the nautical sequel, C-SPAN.
Yes, that's right.
Pitch us games, listeners. You want to. You have ideas buzzing around in your heads. That is PlaywrightCast on any of those locations we mentioned earlier. PLAYWRITECAST.
And once you're done going to our website and writing a pitch, reward yourself with a listen to Hello World, our theme song. Thank you to PROTODOME. It's off the album Blue Noise, and it's a good song. Use it as a treat for yourself and get right back into the spirit of the show.
Right, and to close out our show today, Q, what kind of a miniature pitch do you have for us?
We're going to probably talk about this genre a lot, but here's another contemporary classic smash up for you. Donkey Kong Battle Royale, based on the original arcade Donkey Kong, where the contestants are trying to climb up ladders and avoid obstacles as the levels they climb get smaller and smaller and smaller, and you end up being able to take the hammer and smash your remaining opponents.
Interesting. I like it. Right. Well, we'll see you next week.
Bye.